The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the host and guest and do not reflect the opinions or policies of the station, its owners, or its advertisers. All content should be considered editorial in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Recorded live, Cumberland County's smartest hour of talk radio. Welcome back to another edition of the Carolina Cabinet.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Cabinet. I'm your host, Peter Pappas. We know this is the smartest hour of radio, and our job is to give the conservatives of Fayetteville, Cumberland County a voice in the conversations that matter most. That means straight talk, real opinions, and honest discussion about what's happening in our communities across North Carolina and around the country. Joining me today in the Cabinet, my co-host, Mrs. Laura Mussler.
Hello, hello.
Good afternoon. And special, very special guest, Chairman of the County Commissioners, Kirk Devier. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Great to be here. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know about special, but glad to be here.
You're plenty special, Kirk.
Not short, but special.
Yeah,
just special.
We got room for everybody here, okay?
Yeah, we do a lot. Yeah.
So first, of course we're going to talk about your state of the county address from last year. That's the big thing going on.
I'm glad I'm learning what we're going to talk about. This is great.
Yeah, right. So
I'm not on the fly.
Yeah.
There you go. We don't want you prepared.
First thing, I want to compliment you. You delivered that pretty well. I thought I was watching a State of the Union type thing because you had the hand gesture down, and there was a very poignant moment. You referenced your son when you were talking about the future of the community, and I felt like you had a moment where you choked up a little bit.
I did. I mean, it's.
But this is me knowing you for a long time. I know you're.
It really is. I mean, it was. I spend a lot of time away from my family, and why we do this and why we serve is to make this community better for for him, for the future generation. But he sacrifices a great deal, and so it did catch me a little.
So, and you might feel that way, but at least maybe you're Facebook famous in this regard. I mean, I see pictures of you at his games and things. So I don't think you're quite an absent dad.
I'm not an absent dad, but I mean, there's a lot more that I could do.
Sure.
For example, tonight he's going to be at football, and I'm going to be at a Cape Fear Valley hospital meeting because commissioners are on that.
Right.
We're part of that trustee board, and I would be at that football practice.
Well, and that just kind of feeds into, I think a lot of people maybe run for these offices and they're like, I want to run and I want to be a commissioner, and they don't know what the job description looks like if you truly do it.
Yeah, it all depends on how you do it. I think the most important thing we can do as elected officials is show up,
right,
and listen more than we talk. And so to do that, you have to be present. You have to be in the community, and you have to be in not just parts of the community, you have to be in all parts of the community, and you have to show up for your responsibilities as the board, and not just at board meetings, but at your advisory board meetings and the liaison committees that you're a part of.
Well, and definitely since you boys took the, because we ran together, and also I was like, oh, the boys. But when you gentlemen took office, there definitely seems to be feet on the ground, and there's more than photo ops coming from county commission. So I do appreciate that. Now, one other thing I did like about your state of the county, you included people in the community like Mike Waters out there in Eastover, or is like Grace Creek area, and Chief Johnson over there on Stony Point. So you included the people that are really in our community, and they're pushing for change. I mean, they're very vocal.
Yeah, and I think one of the points that I was really trying to drive home is it's about the people in this community, and if we're going to make the change, it takes everybody doing it. It's not just 7 people sitting on the county commissioners or others in elected office. It's the community. It's folks that are just like y'all, are getting up fighting every day, fighting for the community and doing your part, and y'all do your part just like Mike Waters did his, and Emerald did hers, and when she was helping raise money for the homeless.
Yeah. Well, and that's definitely a part of what makes us great here, because we do have a lot of people that aren't native. That's right. They come here, they land here, they live here, and they jump right into our community. So let's talk about Mission Forward.
Okay.
It sounds good. Okay, so there's investment, there's growth, stronger communities, but before we get too specific, I mean, I felt like I was watching an Oprah show. Like, you get this and you get that, and I was going to look under my chair to see if I want anything, but I was at home, so I couldn't do that. But are we talking about existing revenue, new revenue, or are we talking about debt in the form of bonds that we might have to take? Where does this overall look like?
Well, first of all, our community deserves these things, Peter.
Okay.
I mean, quite frankly, we do. We deserve a good education system that hasn't been funded in years. And so we showed last year that we can fund our education system by the tune of over almost $500 million and still lower your tax rate. I get it. We can argue about did people's tax rate lower, but we know
the value went up, tax went down. Yeah.
But my point is we can invest in the things with general fund dollars if you prioritize. So you invest, $250 million in water infrastructure, which is woefully needed in this community that we haven't done, which is why we are suffering in so many ways, and we can't come out of tier 1 because we can't grow our industry, we can't grow our housetops. So you can do all those things. So I think it's a community we deserved.
So
it wasn't a
like
pipe
a
dream.
wide giveaway, but it's so because.
But we need to talk about what
we're involved, and I'm involved, and I'm around. I'm on the one board for the county. It comes down to dollars and cents, and I just, from my experience, I know what an aquatic center could cost. I know what what we're behind on infrastructure could cost. I know we need it. I just don't know how to get there.
Well,
the aquatic center is lost on me. Everybody is talking about an aquatic center. We need an aquatic. How many people does this aquatic center really service? We have an aquatic center just over the county line. How many people from Cumberland County go over there and use it? Is it really cost effective to have an aquatic center? We have indoor pools and things like that. As a homeowner in Cumberland County, is there going to be a bond to pay for that? And if I'm paying for it for 100 people to use, probably not. I'm not interested in an aquatic center.
Great questions, but it's not an aquatic center that's across the line in the county. When you look at our high school swim teams that have nowhere to swim, they have nowhere to train, they're in line, and then sometimes only get 2 minutes in the pool to practice. So it's for our high school sporting teams. It's for collegiate events, high school events. It's for community recreation. When you look at east side of the river, there are no aquatic. There is no pools on the other side of the river. When you look at how we fund it, that's why we're doing a feasibility study, because part of that feasibility study is to look at the programming. So you look at the tourism driver in it. You look at the economic driver of it. You look at how we partner with the military and Cape Fear Valley to maybe do some human performance type training that we see with our athletes or military members. And that feasibility study is going to tell us what programs we need, the best way to fund it. And fund it doesn't always mean it's on the taxpayer's dime. It could be a blend of funds. There's a lot of different ways that we should and we need to do a better job in this community of how we fund things and what that actually means. Is it a public-private kind of partnership? I mean, there's lots of opportunities. And then more importantly, where is it going to go and how we're going to do that? But that's part of doing your homework and feasibility. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, before the city council of Fayetteville ever did a parks bond, because I was part of that, $35 million, there was a survey, and it's been multiple, that says, the community is outcrying for this type of swim competitions and aquatic center that gives this type of recreation. So I think the foundation's there. This is how you advance the ball. Instead of talking about things like we seem to do in this community, this is actually putting action to words. And again, to use the framing of the state of the county is forward. So we're going to move forward. We're going to advance. So we may get through the feasibility study. It may come back and say, you don't need it.
So does that mean we're going to pay some outside firm to come inside here and tell us exactly what we specialize in that?
We've already budgeted that. I can't help who bids on the process. Right. So, I mean, if there's a consultant in this community that wants to bid on a county contract, by all means, they just have to submit. They have to submit the proposal like everybody else. We have a procurement process that we must follow. It's the law. You just can't hand out consulting contracts to whoever you want.
I would love to see a priority of local.
We have that.
Okay, good.
You have that across the community. But the question is, we have got to get local vendors to also
submit.
We need people
that have the qualifications to do
it. Right. Well, and we do. And there's people that do that. But I think, yes, we budgeted that last year. That's part of, again, taking the step, being responsible, and putting actions to words and not just words.
So, okay, just to be clear, we are possibly looking at new revenue or cutting. You said more efficient use of our resource, which is our property taxes that we pay in. So are we just looking at just a combination of we need to raise new revenue, whether it's a bond or just more efficient cost cutting of a budget? I mean, where's most of this stuff going to come from?
Well, with what we do, we have a debt model. And so the way the county is structured, we move money into two kind of funds, think about it in two type of reserve funds. So you've got your, reserve that you always hear about that you've got to have by law a certain percentage. But then we also have a capital fund that we move money to help service our debt or to do pay-as-you-go projects. It's a pretty unique structure that's in place. We put some additional structure to it last year during our budget process on how that money's moved, percentages that we move. We want to be mindful of the spending and the tax rate, of course. And so in this year's budget workshop, we looked at, we want to make sure that there's a percentage of our growth and we're not going to spend above what our growth is and be responsible when it comes to that. But we can service.
Does that make your board unique that you took that step?
I don't know if it makes us unique. I think it's how we operate.
Okay.
Has it been how you always operate?
I can,
or the board
for the last
always?
14 months since I've been the chair, that's how we've operated.
I will speak for no one.
Yeah, I can speak for this board.
So you got, and also
but I will say, fair to the looking back, some of that funding formula for that, how we service our debt and how we do the pay-as-you-go projects. Some of that was put in place years ago. Now, there really wasn't a structure to it. They had a number that they came up with, and that's what got moved. I will argue that as we looked at last year, making the investments and actually using the dollars the way we need to in the right debt model that is prioritized to the things that we need, like schools and infrastructure and all these things. There hadn't been dollars invested in those things in many years, and the board did that last year.
So when you say you're prioritizing, what got put to the wayside?
I don't know if anything got put to the wayside. It's just a matter of prioritizing and actually allocating the dollars and looking at it. But when you've got, renovations to courthouse or new general service, general administration buildings and things like that, we just reprioritize and reorganize the debt model to make sure that the first thing that we're funding is the things that matter most in this community and that affect your everyday life, that affect everybody's everyday life in this community, such as public schools. As you look right now, what our school board's going through, and they're trying to repurpose these schools, and they've got $800+ million of deferred maintenance. How do you think that deferred maintenance got there? Because we weren't making the investments.
And that brings me to what I wanted to ask you. So overall, I want to quantify for anybody that's going to watch or listen about how much is our budget in Cumberland County overall. It's about $500 million, 400 million, $400 or 500 million. Okay, and that goes up and down depending on
different grants and things like that. Sure. It could be $500 to $600 million.
So I just want to think about, okay, we bring in about $400 to $500 million a year off of property tax revenue.
Well, it's a multitude of things, but
different things, but mainly I would say majority of it is property taxes. But what I'm trying to quantify and make it reasonable for anybody watching is if you say $200 million or $100 million for a certain project, how much of our budget that is, so if it's a $100 million project,
but I think it's hard to look.
It's not like that, just that one year.
In business, you don't go out and pay cash for everything. Sure. We leverage bonds, and there's a lot of different types of bonds that you can leverage depending on what we do. You've got to have your capital improvement programs where you're doing the maintenance on the existing things that you have. So there's a lot of different ways that you structure those dollars. It's not really a one for one. And every year we go through a budgeting process.
Well, a lot of people don't realize how large our county is. So that's kind of why I wanted to also bring that up is, we're dealing with real money here. It's $500 million running through here.
But when you look at it, 40% of that is spent on health and human services.
Right.
And then, another large chunk should be spent in education. And education not only includes, because remember, a county commission's responsibility is not only for K through 12, but it's also for our community colleges here as well. And quite frankly, we've underfunded that for years. Last year was the first year we fully funded their operational as well as gave them some additional capital. And when we talk about operational, that is real dollars. That's $100 million, $110 million to the public. Public school system.
I think I'm going to give you a little bit of cover here. So the county funds the capital expenditures for the school and operational stuff, but not the teacher salaries.
No, we fund part of the teacher salaries as well. That's right.
So how do we quantify? Okay, because it's great to have goals. It's great to have vision. How do we quantify and what are the measurables so that we know that the dollars are being well spent? Where does the success come in? Because we are, not very successful in our testings and things like that here in Cumberland County. So where is the measurable, and how are the parents getting bang for their buck when it comes to their children?
I think that's a twofold question. One, we're investing in the public school system, into their strategic plan, into what we believe that how they're going to move the needle. I said, so I think you can measure it against, the things that we see in the school system. For the other investments that we make, our strategic plan outlines some metrics and core things. We want to move the community, on a very macro level. You can really look at, if you want to look and say, tier one indicators. Did we grow our average salaries in our community? Did we grow our population? Did we grow home ownership? Did we lower poverty? There's some really big picture kind of metrics, but if you're moving those metrics, then the community is probably moving in the right direction.
What I would like to know is, do our students know how to read?
It'd be a great question to, and again,
we need the school board people in here.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's a great question. And I've got a child in 4th grade right now, and I get it. 3rd grade reading is huge, and I'll go back to when I served in the state Senate and COVID and what happened during COVID and our schools being closed and the impact that we are now, the ripple effect that we're seeing, on that not third then, but 7th grade level math or 7th grade level reading and math that we're seeing now. So there is a lot of work, but there were dollars that were appropriated for that back in the day. Were those dollars used correctly? I don't.
But to be clear, your job as a county commission is to provide the funding to the school board for them to efficiently spend it.
That's right, and understand we can't dictate those dollars. So I can't line item veto. We can't line item veto anything or
we should. I think that there should be some oversight,
and that's where this question is going to come from. So yes, we fully funded the schools, and that sounds great. The problem is we've lost how many students? We've lost, to my knowledge, the equivalent of about a Terry Sanford High School enrollment, 12 or 1,300 kids in our community. Why fully fund the schools if they have fewer kids? And also, I thought we were going to close some schools, but now they've been kind of pushing back. So why give them all the money for what they're maybe going to close? Is there an easy way to answer that?
Well, I don't. I think you're looking at it in a very binary kind of level. And I will, and I have pushed back on the school system. Why are we losing students? But you could argue, and you're in business, if you don't have a good product, you can't sell it.
I think people are afraid to tell the schools that.
Well, but I think they know, and that's part of the reason why they're trying to go back and repurpose and actually invest in some of these schools. When you've got an aging school, when you got a school that's got an AC unit hanging outside the window, and the children can't learn because they're not in the type of environment they need to be in. As a parent, aren't you going to take them? So aren't you going to make sure your child has the best opportunity to succeed, whether that's homeschool, whether that's private, whether that's charter, whether that's whatever it may be. We've got to do a better job of investing in the product, and that product is, quite frankly, our children, but the school system is the vehicle for that. And we have not done that. So we can argue why kids are leaving. You could also look at the population growth and our declining population in the county as well.
I'm just worried that there is no oversight, because it is, as having the school system be administrative heavy is not a good thing. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I was told a while back that our school system is administrative heavy, and administrators don't do a whole lot for the actual students, and that's a problem.
That's a great conversation for your school board. But I'll tell you one thing that we did do is,
that's why I say there should be oversight.
One of the things in the operational budget that they asked for was teacher supplements and being able to match so that we were the lead in the region. Because what was happening is we were losing people across the line in the Harnett County. So we got great teachers that were leaving because they could drive right across the line and make several more $1,000s a year.
Is that how much the supplements are that we're providing?
Yeah.
Is it that large of a?
Yeah, so we went from being in the bottom in our region to being in the top, and there's a disproportional formula that's happened at the state level, and we'll argue that, but you can only control what you can control, and so we looked at it last time and said, ask us for it. If we can fund it, we're going to fund it, because we know teachers are important. They add to that product of the school that we have that teaches our children. So that was part of it. And I think the accountability is, for us, is you need to do what you said you're going to do, or we're going to have a harder discussion discussion when you come back the next year, which is this year, to have a conversation around what your ask is this year.
And that was my biggest concern with, fully funding the schools. Like, well, I think they're right in the middle of a transition and I think they have bowed to some public pressure at the school board. And I do want to have them on. We do need to have some of those guys on, but, I think this is a situation, and you don't have to comment on this, but it's a situation where I think we, the public, need to, I guess, defer to the people we elected to make these decisions, because they're not easy. And there's a lot of passion around closing any of these schools, and it's,
political decisions or elected decisions are never easy.
I don't see how they are, but when I hear that like they're going to close school A, B, or C because, well, that school is a classical school or whatever else, does that mean we can't close the building and move the same teachers and faculty to create that energy in another better building?
That's part of what you're doing. I think what you've seen the school board do so far is they really haven't changed the closures. They've moved around some of the programs or adjusted year-round schools or things like that. So there hasn't been an adjustment to the closures. And remember, what they proposed, and it's not final yet. They still have to finalize until they bring us a budget. It's not final. But there was a $5 million a year of operational savings. I mean, that's a penny and a half on the tax dollar. I mean, that's substantial. I mean, especially when you're coming back with a $6 million increase this year.
Did I see,
substantial.
Because that $800 million was floating around quite a bit. But then did I not see that if they close some of these schools, they can get that bill down to the 400s? Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, but then you got to factor in, there's also the new school construction as well. Right. So, I mean, which we anticipate them coming back and asking for additional, based on what they've laid out. There's an additional ask of new school construction. That's part of what we're looking at. How much does a new school cost? I saw a number like $30 million for a new school. How much does one building cost? Well, I mean, I think you've got planning dollars. So I think when you look at an elementary school versus a middle school versus a high school, there's kind of some planning dollars that they put in, and then as you go through the process, they'll define what the actual costs are. But you've got to have a planning dollar so that we can factor something into a debt model, because we're going to have to make some decisions on when the renovations happen, as well as the new schools construction begins, when that debt needs to hit. Do we need to do it in general obligation bonds, which will take voters, which takes a process, or are we doing it through limited obligation bonds or something you hear called LOBs that we can just do and we can issue? Difference in cost, but depending on the amount that we're going to, those are some of the things that we have to work through. And as we get those final decisions from the school board or their request, then as a board, we'll begin to relook at our
When is their budget due to you guys?
They'll probably give it to us in May.
Okay, because you guys have a budget due in June, right? So you really don't have much runway.
Yeah, but we can put some, you can put some placeholders in from a planning standpoint, and our staffs work very well together. Our CFO, our financial officer, and our budget officer, as well as the school boards, do a great job of working together and communicating, routinely.
So everything we're seeing on Facebook and all the floating in the space out here, nothing's really final yet with the closures or with building.
Nothing is final. Now they've taken a vote, which that vote is binding, but until they move that budget forward, that's going to be the budget.
The budget will be the
once they move, when they move a resolution to us, because boards speak in resolutions, and so when they move that resolution to us for an ask, that's there'd be a final vote, and given we have an opportunity to fund it or not fund it.
Right.
And, I think you'll see a board that is going to be supportive of our education system as we have, because we're behind, quite frankly, and we have been.
But there's collaboration, I'm sure, between your board and the school board. I mean, you guys are not letting them just bring a wish list and you're just saying, okay. There's a lot of work going on.
Yeah. And we'll do a joint meeting to kind of go through the things. I routinely talk to the chairwoman of the board, Chairwoman Musgrave, Judy Musgrave, and, talk with her vice chair as well, and just, make sure that there's an open line of communication as they're moving through this, because it's important at the board level as well as at the staff level.
Well, I think I feel a little better about the schools, but I do want to see them make hard choices, because I know we need it. We need to give that 21st century education to these kids. They deserve it. They have schools that are falling down around them, and they're still worried about some my granddaddy went there or something, some legacy things like, look, your granddaddy would be happy if you were in a new school now.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard, the decisions they have to make. And, I said that to them last year, that there's nothing ever easy when you start talking about redistricting or closing schools or anything. Mm-hmm. But these are hard decisions that you're not making for the now. You're making it for the 5 and 10 and 20 years down the road. And you got to think about what this community has not had, and the investments that haven't been there. And so you're playing catch up. So it's a harder vote. It's a harder decision. But quite frankly, that's what we're elected to do. We're elected to gather the information, gather the facts, mm-hmm. listen to our community, and make the decision that's in the best interest. God knows I've taken some votes over the years I've been in office that, you're always going to upset somebody. You're always going to make somebody happy, mm-hmm. but you've got to do what's in the best interest.
You got to stick down the main line. Right. Keep going. Okay. So, let's talk about water and sewer, because that is a huge deal with PFAS contamination. And then, of course, Fuquay-Varina trying to steal 6 million gallons from us.
A day.
Well, yeah, a day. And my favorite, I tried to tell somebody, I was like, look, if that were to happen, as soon as PwC flipped the switch on giving them our water or them taking our water, we're automatically in a drought condition. Mm-hmm. Like, without even having a hot day, like, we're automatically on water conservation. So this is bad. Where are we in that process? Have we heard anything from Department of Environmental Quality?
Yeah, so April is a month that the Environmental Management Commission, because remember, it goes to a commission first for the vote. Mm-hmm. That's who we testified in front of if you spoke at one of the public forums. And DEQ will be involved in it, but it ultimately goes to that commission to take a vote on it. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen in April, so if you haven't given public comment, you still have an opportunity. You can go to the DEQ, Department of Equality website for North Carolina, and you can submit your comments on why they shouldn't do it.
Okay.
But we won't hear anything until April. We've had PwC's done a great job of really organizing the response to this at a county commission level. I know I personally talked to people up and down the Cape Fear River, both on the commission side and also some of my former colleagues on the state level, to ensure they understand the impact, because there's some people that are in very powerful positions that it will impact their community, and I wanted to make sure they understood the impact that it was going to have. And so we're continuing to work that advocacy at all levels.
And you know me, I'm going to just come to a straight, what I feel like the easy, pragmatic answer, but could this be avoided if Fuquay just built a pipe to the Neuse? I mean, is that what it is? Could solve their problem? I mean, is it just a lack of their infrastructure that's causing them to want our stuff?
I mean, I think it's, path of least resistance. And if you're, it doesn't impact them. They're a growing community. They see an opportunity that will cost them less dollars. And mm-hmm. so why not do it?
I got you.
I mean, so
just cheap. So it's up to us to fight it.
It is up to us to fight. It's just like anything else. I mean, you've got to, again.
I just wish it was that simple. He could talk to people in the Senate and the House, and get the money to build a pipe.
But they've known about this for years.
They should build their own. Well, do you want to pay part of that pipe? No, if you take state dollars, you're paying for part of that pipe.
Well, even Billy Richardson spoke that night at Fable Tech, and he was like, "Hey, they knew about." I'm paraphrasing, but they knew about this when I was in the House, and he was in the House in early 90s.
Yeah, early 90s. He actually was part of the first ones that set up one of the initial laws around interbasin transfers.
Right.
So technically, this is their failure to plan 20 years in advance.
Just like the failures we have to plan around infrastructure in this community. I mean, we can't blame anybody else.
No, we can blame them.
If we don't have capacity, that's ultimately our elected leaders.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right. Well, let's take a moment, Laura. You haven't said anything about your comments coming in. You got a few comments.
I do. Depends on if I like them or not.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's say hello to Jessica. She says she's still breathing. She's still alive. So it's good to see you.
Hi, Jessica. Welcome back.
So Gary, let's talk about your $20 million of taxes going to the landfill budget. I don't know. Do you know anything about that?
I'll have to not. I don't like to speak on something I don't have the facts on. But Gary, I've seen your comments, and I think you know how to get a hold of me. I'm glad to get you that information as we look at. Our landfill costs, our land. We've got a lot of work to do. An underfunded enterprise fund. So this is a different fund. It's an enterprise fund. It's it's fee based, but we also, it has to balance out, as you know, an enterprise fund. But we've got some work to do there. And that's one of the things that we looked at last budget season. And I think we're going to continue to look at it this season. There's some opportunities in the landfill with some things that we can do to offset some of the costs. And I think you'll see some conversations around that. But Gary, that's a great question. I understand. I fully believe that, a fee is just a tax in any other terms.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people think the landfill is just a big hole we keep putting stuff in, that they don't realize how much maintenance and all goes into operating that big landfill.
Yeah. And just, there's a lot of pieces that go into it. And again, you have to make the investments along the way. And if you don't, then you end up, having to like we're seeing in the schools right now. That's right. Pay the piper. You're exactly right.
I like this comment about Falcon because I was actually just going to go out last Thursday. They had their Falcon Town meeting, and I'm going to start heading out to all the outer bands.
Join me. I'm out there all the time.
Yeah. Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to.
Their Turpin is wonderful.
You can awesome. Carpool.
I just didn't feel like I was sick over the last couple of weeks. So Thursday night, I was like, I want to go home and go to bed. But I love this question from our Falcon person.
Okay. So.
I'm living in Falcon and paying over $4,500 a year in taxes. What do we so-called?
You are a citizen, RK.
I was going to say you are a citizen. What do we actually get for the money? No police, no EMS.
Well, so the first question, inside Falcon, so you have Falcon city town taxes and you have county. So remember, if you live inside a town or municipality or a city, there is a tax rate that they pay as well. So encourage you to look at those. We did lower our tax rate. Again, that didn't impact everyone, but we dropped it pretty substantially, 30 cents, 6 cents below revenue neutral, as low as we could get it and not have to cut services. But when you look at roads, I get it. I'm dealing in some of the unincorporated areas now out towards between Hope Mills and Fayetteville. There's a lot of unincorporated areas. I've spent a lot of time out there along with some other commissioners identifying, some of the issues along the roadways. And unfortunately, those are DOT.
Yeah.
It's not a zone. It's not a permitting. It's not an inspection.
And it's not you passing the buck.
It's not. It's that's who's funded to clean it up, and we've got to hold them accountable. But it kind of combines with the other. If we don't have easy places that are not overly expensive to take your trash, then we probably won't see some of that along the roadside.
And that's part of his comment was, the trash dumps have sporadic hours, but that's a town of Falcon City.
Well,
is it or is it not?
So that, you have in some of the unincorporated areas, of course, there's not trash service, so you contract for your own trash service, but you do have access to the dumps. So that is one thing that we've heard over the last year is, what are the hours? Again, there's a cost to the hours that are there. Where are the outlying areas? Do we position more remote spots? And we're transitioning one out into some of the unincorporated areas in the areas I was just talking about. But are there other more convenient areas where people just aren't going to take it and throw their recliner that they don't want anymore on the side of the road?
Right.
And that's, so it's twofold. It's not just a DOT issue to clean up, but it's also to make sure that we have access to convenient locations that are also affordable because you do pay taxes, and so you should be able to have the basis of services. And is that one of the basis of services?
Well, and RK, if you want to put it in the chat here, what are the hours that you're seeing? I'd like to talk about that. But Kirk, I want to ask you this: the rest of his statement, honest questions and perspective. Any steps to at least return a larger percentage of that money back to my municipality where I can actually see the money work for the community? So does that feed into maybe your conversation of using the money more appropriately and more efficiently? Is that going to help maybe in this situation?
Yeah, I think so. And I think one of the things that I know since I've been the chairman, one of the things I've been very deliberate about, I meet with the municipal mayors every month, rebuilt. And I knew a lot of them before I came into this role just based on my previous positions. But it's about relationships. And one of the things I talk to them about is how can we do things that the county should be doing that we can lessen the burden on your general fund so you can return that either in the form of lower tax rates or additional services for growth that you need.
Okay.
So we're doing things like standardizing some of the planning and inspections where some of these smaller municipalities are outsourcing this and paying others to do it, when there should be a baseline level of service that we're either doing or we're doing it for a nominal fee if there is a cost associated with it. So it's things like that. It's how we changed it last year.
You're untangling things, it sounds like.
Trying to, but it's a very convoluted process with a lot of unique interlocal agreements that some people can't find.
It's like having that container of wires that you just throw everything in. You pick one, and it leads to like 45.
Yeah, but when I put them in, they were organized.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, I feel like every time you kick a rock, you're finding something else.
Right.
Yeah.
But it comes from actually what I talked about earlier. It comes from getting out in these communities and listening to people and talking to these mayors on frustrations. Mayor Burnett screaming for help with his water situation so he can actually grow his community and put more housetops there, bring in more tax revenue to fund his town. Didn't get any help. We're putting that help in place now, and this regional approach that we're tackling with water and sewer is helping him put that infrastructure in. So now that he'll be able to have the water infrastructure he needs.
So how long until RK sees some measurable improvements?
Nothing's ever fast. I guess it depends on, what he's defining, making investments in school, making investments in water infrastructure, making investments in, how towns can do inspections, how they can, have more tax dollars to do the quality of life things that they need to, or lower their tax rate. I think some of that's up to some of the communities. I think the county is trying to be and is being a better partner to our municipalities because we're stronger when we all move in the same direction and not operate out in our silos. But our focus is, how can we help these communities grow at the rates that they want to grow? But more importantly, and you'll hear me say it every time I can, how do we keep more money in people's pockets? Because, people know how to spend their money best.
And he does recognize that he sees Kirk at meetings. So that's something that I've commented on several times that for the first time, I mean, I always saw Glenn Adams everywhere, but I don't know. But
Glenn is everywhere all the time.
But for the first time, I'm seeing more than just Glenn. I'm seeing you at all kinds of events. I'm seeing Pavan and Henry at all kinds of events. And
the other point is it's also, are things happening? The more importantly, versus just appearing, are things happening?
That's the difference. Is I see it's not a photo op.
That's right.
It's listening and taking things back, and that's the difference that I've seen in this board over perhaps the way things have been running in the past. And I do see also recognition that the city and the county are now working together at a better,
more visible, I would say.
Visible.
And you say the city of Fayetteville, so I'll also caveat that with Hope Mills. And, I meet with Mayor Bellflowers routinely, and we're working through things out there on how we can help them. Spring Lake and Mayor Anthony, I meet with her once a month, and we're, slowly knocking down the Manchester Fire District, what we can do with their infrastructure. They've got $75 million.
Do they still have the two fire stations out there, that one servicing and not getting paid from or something?
No. So that's all been cleared up. So a different volunteer fire department was covering that Manchester. Right. We've just reworked that. We're waiting for them to come back and approve the coverage, because the Manchester Fire District is a county fire district. So we're asking municipality to cover that district.
Right.
And we would pay them for those services. But I think that's the other thing to, what you see in these municipalities. Hopefully, as we do this, and again, you can't change things overnight. It's been 14 months. It's 15 months. But I think what you're going to see is you're going to see better recreational services. You're going to see better, public safety services, more sheriffs out in those areas, more stronger volunteer fire departments out in those areas based on the things that we're doing. It takes a little while to turn that ship.
I bring up the volunteer fire station because that was an issue before the election.
Yeah.
So wheels turn slow, but they're turning.
Right.
And I think that's at least progress. Thank God.
Well, what you have to do is you got to stay focused on the things that matter. You can, as an elected official, you can move to the noise, or you can stay focused on the things that matter, because you don't want to wake up and 2 years from now you're looking at the same list that you looked at previously and said, oh my God, what have I gotten done?
And it's funny because I just had a conversation this morning about we're so focused on all that's wrong we forget to look at what has changed and what has been fixed. Like my example was like in Australia, which has nothing to do with Cumberland County.
No,
but
we're off the mark there.
a little bit.
That's
But we were talking about the reef. The Great Barrier Reef
Right.
was dying and everybody had to get onto it. Well, it's like 90%, 85, 90% back regrown, but you don't hear about it anymore. So here in Cumberland County, and I use that as a big thing for people to visualize. In Cumberland County, while you have issues, as things get resolved, we need to be reporting on that too, not just all the problems, so that people can see that we are turning
It's
that.
kind of like we don't always want the negative. We want both news.
Right.
You listen to my State of the Community, because that's what I talked about. I talked about that people define us by our challenges versus our character, by what we lack, which is what you just spoke about, versus what we build. And we've got to tell our own story.
Right.
And you know, the story that we've got to tell is continuing around that we do invest, you know, in
Well, that's
our
why these
schools.
goals have to
That's
be
right.
measurable, to say, hey,
That's right.
here's where I came in, and here's what I've done, and this is how it's changed, or whatever. So they really need to be measurable so that we can show. And we need to have a channel just on positive things that have happened around Cumberland County, because I'm tired of seeing all the negative.
But, you know, there's nothing wrong with having those hard conversations. You know, families have hard conversations, but having
They
a
also celebrate the wins
That's right.
too.
That's exactly what I was
And
going to
we
say.
don't do that.
That's right. So we've got to do both. And we've got, I mean, that's part of what I talked about in the State of the Community. And while it may have looked like, you know, whatever you said me up there with hand gestures,
You're a
I think
professional, Kirk.
but
That's all.
it was about getting our community to rally forward and to tell our story, because we are doing some things right. Do we have everything right? No, of course we don't. You know, would I love our tax rate to be lower? Would I love all these problems to be solved at the snap of a finger? No, we didn't get here in a year, and we're not going to, you know, get out of it in a year or 2 or 4 years. I mean, these are long-term things that we have to put in place to set the conditions for exactly what I talked about in my State of the County. And that's, and I looked at my boy and said, we're making decisions for him and his and the next generation after him.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you're in this for the long haul.
I'm in it to make the changes I can make as long as the citizens have me here.
Okay.
So one more time with the water and sewer, and I'll leave it alone. So
I love talking about it.
what is, so I know we missed an opportunity like 30, 40 years ago to have funding for it because we didn't want it. And essentially now we didn't know we had poison in our water back then either. So how big is this project going to be? Are we looking at a $500 million project to bring sewer and water down to these areas?
Yeah, so it's really a combination. So we're taking a very regional approach. So what you're seeing is we are breaking the county into districts, which we kind of already started. So you have what you probably heard, the Norcrest, which is Northern Cumberland County. But, you know, we're establishing the other districts. So when we regionalize this, and then we look at, so take Norcrest, you know, long term, you want to have those municipal systems, which, again, this is another way that we help the Falcons and the Godwins and the Wades. They have municipal water and sewer systems. They can't afford those. So how do we regionalize that? How do we work together to bring the resources into those individual districts? So we can still go back to the USDA, who we've had conversations with. We can go find grant dollars. We can allocate pay-as-you-go projects.
So there's still money available to do it if we look at the district level.
There is. And so what we want to do is focus at that district level and build those districts, you know, long term, but do it in a way that's, one, responsible, but also does it in a collective way that, you know, as you look at land use plans and you take those future land use plans and you lay them over the districts, so that when we're building out sewer and water, we're building to, if this is an urban area or an industrial area, we're building to that standard. We're not underbuilding. But the piece of it is, how do then all these districts work together? How do these municipalities work together? And how do we bring more capacity into?
I mean, are we looking to create like Cumberland County Water, like their own PWC? I mean, how does this look?
Well, so you have then, so PWC is going to be a partner in this. Harnett County Water will be a partner in this. Dunn is going to be a partner in this. ESD, the
So
Eastover Sewer
those
District.
guys will kind of just grow their footprint and administer what you're going to put in?
You got to think they're going to help provide capacity into those districts. And how that build out works may be a build out as funded from the districts, funded from one of our partners. There's a lot of different ways. Every district is going to look different depending on how and what we're doing right now is we're working through district by district to create an action plan, not a talking point, an action plan on the deliverables that you're going to see by quarter, by year, that need to happen in these districts to advance this.
Well, that also allows you to prioritize most
right.
need.
That's right. That's
Okay.
exactly. Well, so the problem is there's not most need.
We need it. Yeah,
we need it across all sections.
Yeah.
It's a basic infrastructure, so
Yeah,
it's not
we're having a conversation tomorrow, an infrastructure summit really focused on economic corridors of 95. So really that industrial. I mean, right now, Robert, we don't have anything along that 95 corridor that we can really promote to industry. And if you look at what's happening, along that corridor, we've got huge opportunities to, recruit industry, defense industries. And that's right. I mean, multiple things. Maybe that could go on top of the aquatic center.
There you go.
Or around the aquatic center.
tie it all together, be it a for-profit business.
But that corridor we've got to invest in it. So we're spending time tomorrow, talking to all the partners, talking to not just
You're
utility
talking about
providers.
I-95, not Business 95.
Correct. I-95 up through Falcon, Godwin, all the way up connecting into Harnett County, but all the way down to, also looking at the smaller arteries like 87 and 24 and 401. I mean, we have to invest infrastructure in that corridor, or we don't have a product. I mean, just like we were talking about the school system earlier. Why aren't people going here? Why aren't people moving here? It's because we don't have the room for
We have the dirt, but we don't have the infrastructure.
That's right.
Yeah, we got the room for them. So, and I'm going to blame you for this. So you said the county can do all of this while still keeping money in taxpayers' pockets. So how is that going to work in practice?
Again, I think you have to prioritize, and you have to look at what makes, you got to prioritize what's important. When you look at education and what we can do, you got to prioritize that. You got to prioritize the infrastructure. You got to look at, and if you're doing those types of things, you're growing your tax rate. So if you're responsible with the growth, and we do smart growth, and we continue to see growth not only in our county, you're going to see incremental revenue growth. Look at how the state of North Carolina did it. Kept a low tax rate, but yet we're the strongest in the nation for business growth. We have some of the largest, and you look around at some of the corridors around us, when you look at, up in the Greensboro area and some of these other areas, strong growth that happened. Look at right up the road in Kent, or in Clayton, or not Clayton, right up the road outside Smithfield with the Vulcan plant. In that corridor, we have to do those same types of things. So you can grow and keep your tax rate low. You just have to do it in a responsible way and invest in the things that matter.
Basically, you can do it as long as we don't remain static. We have to continue pushing to attract the larger industry.
But you've got to have the infrastructure.
But we have to have the infrastructure.
You can't not have infrastructure in respect to grow. You can't not have clean water and sewer so that you can build housetops, because there's only so many locations you can really build.
Well, I think the taxpayers are willing to invest in their community. I really believe that. So what we don't like are surprises.
That's right.
So along the way, you're one of the most transparent people that we see, but you're committing to transparency along the way so that nobody's caught off guard.
Always. I mean, transparency in everything that we're doing, and I know, maybe a little, over the top, but I mean, everything from streaming our meetings to go to our website now, and there's dashboards that drill down into, if you want to look at a specific project, it'll tell you how much we're spending on it. And we're trying to get that as real time as we can based on the data sources. But we want to be, if somebody wants to find the information, even from a public records request, we've streamlined that service so people can get the information in a timely manner in the way that they want it. To me, standing up in front of the press once a month and taking questions, just like I'm taking, not knowing what the script is. This isn't scripted. And I think that's part of it.
Oh, you didn't get your script?
No, I didn't get my script. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I left you off
Got
the
lost in the mail.
So we have a lot of great plans, Kirk. And what is a risk maybe that hasn't been talked about as publicly as it should have been or is going to be? What is the largest risk to any of this growth and all? What could hold us back?
Well, I mean, just the ability. I mean, there's a lot of risk. I mean, when you look at what we're seeing, when I talked about Health and Human Services, we got $28 million that's coming down between the federal and the state that are going to cost us around some of the programs.
Okay.
When we look at Medicaid, we look at SNAP, and we look at some programs that affect the most vulnerable in our community. There's $28 million worth of, I hate calling it funding, that we're going to have to fund for different programs and just shortfalls, et cetera, on top of we're seeing sales tax is not growing at the rate that it previously has. You run the risk of, anything at the state level or federal level changing based on the whims of government. So a lot of times there's a lot of things that are outside of your control that you can't factor. You have to be able to defend against. I think that's why we have to be cautious when we look at things like food and beverage tax, when we look at occupancy tax, and we look at these other things that are out there that fund, when we look at grants, when we look at, uses of grant dollars and making sure that those aren't integrated into recurring expenses.
Right.
We got to be smart about those things, but those are the risks. But those things that you can't control, somebody that at a federal or state level can snap their fingers and change that impacts you directly. I think that's, if you ask me what the risk is, I think that's the risk. I think we're starting at the local level to, look at the foundation and making sure that we're doing the right things foundationally from a budget standpoint, from a services standpoint. And we've got a lot of work to do still, but those are the risks. It's the unknown. It's not even the unknown because we know some of them are coming. But
well, speak of the $28 million shortfall. I mean, that really originated at the federal government level.
It did.
It did.
Some of it. Well,
basically, and that is,
some of it ripples down to the state. And, we haven't even had a conversation that, and rightfully so, that the state put in a trigger for Medicaid expansion. And if the funding levels fell below a certain rate, that they would have the ability to repeal it and move it back. If that happens, that's another impact. And it's not just an impact on our community, it's an impact on our hospital, because now those people are going to the emergency room.
Well, and I think people that, again, this, going from national to local politics, there's a huge difference, but people don't realize, the administration or outside of our control affects our local pocketbooks even more than just for the federal taxes. I mean, they're not going to fund Medicaid. So now we have a hole for $28 million here. That's a big deal.
Well, it's not just Medicaid, but it's also SNAP and some other things. And it's just, I understand, work requirements and some of the pieces of the equation they're putting in, but we've got to be smart about how we implement it. So let's just say at the state level, you couldn't look to say, we've got this great program called, NC Works that works with, employers and everything else. So why couldn't we integrate that into NC Works? And now you're doing your verification inside NC Works. And that takes the pressure because that's a statewide program managed by the state. That's another way to look at it that would lessen the burden on the counties. But we see a lot more getting pushed down costs to the counties and municipalities, but also taking away our ability. So when you look at down zoning and some of these other laws that are coming through, and now at the state level, they're talking about doing stuff with our property tax.
I saw that. Yeah, there's a whole committee about revising different triggers.
And so that's potentially dangerous when we look at that. We're a county that's being responsible. Go look at John Locke Foundation and see what they've said about Cumberland County this year. We're one of the ones that are being the most responsible now.
Right. Well, I hope that continues.
Yep. Every plan does have its risks.
Always.
But what keeps you up at night that makes you sweat?
That keeps me up at night. I think what keeps me up at night is, I talked a little bit about it, just the unknown that's out there and not being able to impact against the unknown. But I think what keeps me up at night is what I talked about in the state of county is not being able to create that community that people want to grow in, and we end up moving backwards versus forward. I think that's what probably keeps me up at night, on top of knowing that we have a lot to do in a short window to make sure that we keep pace but stay ahead of pace in an ever-changing environment that we're in the state.
Now, add to a positive, tell me what the favorite part of your job as a county commissioner, the chair of the county commission, what's the best part of what you do? What do you wake up and be like, yes, I get to do this today?
Anytime I get to go out, like we just talked about, out in Falcon and talking to people that, that you help make an impact for, hear Mayor Burnett say thank you. Or when I was, at the Liberty basketball game this weekend and a lady came up to me and she said, she don't know me at all, but just thank you for what you're doing. And we feel the impact. I actually feel like we're going in the right direction now, or helping somebody that has had an issue at DSS that hasn't been able to break through a barrier or a wall. I think the impact that you can have on people, it's why I continue to do this as much as I get punched in the face and stabbed in the back over and over repeatedly. It's what drives me. It's what's in my DNA. It's why I enjoy serving, is to help people and try to make their lives a little bit better than it is today. And I think that's when you see those sparks. I used to always kid Mayor Schiavone when he was the mayor of Fayetteville. I'd send him a note and say, when something like that would happen, that personal kind of experience, I'd send him a note and say, it's a good day to be the mayor. And you have those good days, especially when you feel somebody that you helped. It's what keeps you going.
I like ending on a positive note.
I really do like that. Well, Chairman Deviere, thank you for being here today and suffering through our questions. And
I appreciate the opportunity.
Sorry you didn't get your script.
No, it's all right.
Well, thank you to Mrs. Laura Mussler for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody that's watching, and I hope you continue to support the show. We are
Wait a minute.
voice.
Thank you, Peter Pappas, for putting this together.
I'm doing the best I can today.
Okay.
So we are a voice for the conservatives and still the smartest hour of radio, whether you hear us on a speaker, a phone, or a screen. Follow us, share us, and stay with us at thecarolinacabinet.com. So until next time, we're the Carolina Cabinet.